Ready to go? Ready?
Today on Exploring Scotland's History, we're going to have a look at the Hidden Hebrides. These are sites that we have visited that we might not necessarily have just as much information for a standalone video, but these sites do deserve recognition. Some of them were the most stunning places that we happened to come across. Enjoy.
Right, we're now on the Golden Road, which is basically a road that runs from the south end of Harris up towards Tarbert. It's called the Golden Road because it costs so much to build. Looking at the terrain around here, you can kind of see why. And it's also a very narrow road.
Suddenly?
Yeah. It's not the best of roads. But it's called the Golden Road anyway.
In 1897, a road was built between Tarbert and Rodal on the Isle of Harris. It would become known as the Golden Road. The entire road is a single lane passing place affair. It's demanding with many blind corners and summits, but you can truly appreciate the stunning terrain if you're brave enough. Opinion is that it's called the Golden Road due to the expense of building and cutting through so much gneiss. Bill Lawson, who has written many publications on the history of the Isles, believes the name began on the mainland. There had been a newspaper article complaining about how expensive it was to build any road on the islands. The name stuck. It's a stunning and unique experience to travel this road with its almost lunar appearance.
This is the side of the road on the Golden Road. It's like a car ramp, or like car repair. But it's here, in the middle of nowhere. I could really use one of them at home, but it's a bit of a trek to get here.
It's a golden road. Look at the rocks that people go through. That's quite stunning.
That's fantastic.
There's also something I need to point out about driving in Harris, since I have done 90% of the driving. On the mainland we have a two-way road, and when it becomes a single lane and passing place, single track road, somebody puts a sign up to let you know that doesn't happen in Harris. You suddenly realise there's a van coming towards you and the road's too narrow, but you don't know how that happened. You just like
A single track bridge with a passing place. Could they just have made it a little bit wider?
Scalpay is a small island in the Outer Hebrides, accessible by a road bridge. It's only 2.5 square miles. It boasts the first lighthouse to be constructed in the Hebrides. It is thought that the Scalpay name derives from Ship Island in Norse. Others believe that it's Norse for Scallop Island. The island is community owned in partnership with the North Harris Community Trust. There is a traditional tale associated with Scalpay. A young Anne Campbell had been betrothed to a sailor. He was a captain, and his boat was heading up the Minch towards Scalpay when it came into difficulty and all the sailors on the boat were drowned. He was found many months later, drifted up onto one of the beaches on the Shant Islands. She suffered great melancholy. She really lost the will to live and in fact died a few months later. Because of the lack of soil in Scalpay, her father had to put her coffin on a boat and take it over to Harris in order for her to be buried. On the way over to Harris, there was a horrific storm and her coffin went overboard. A few months later, she was found on the very beach that her betrothed had been found. It is said that the 𝕳𝖆𝖑𝖕𝖊𝖓 was the lament that she wrote herself as she lost the will to live. Steinacleit sits on the south end of 𝕳𝖆𝖑𝖕𝖆𝖊𝖓. Archaeologists are divided on whether it is the remains of a chambered cairn or in fact the remains of an old dwelling house. No excavations have actually been carried out, so for now it will remain a mystery. It's not the most stunning of possible stone circles, it's certainly no Callanish, but what it does have is quite a commanding view of the loch and the 𝕳𝖆𝖗𝖗𝖎𝖊𝖓. This is a 19th century country house now operating as a hotel. The architect for this edifice was David Bryce, who also worked on Torcy Castle in the Isle of Mull and Fettes College in Edinburgh, amongst many other projects. It was finished in 1867 and called Finn Castle, and was to house the 7th Earl of Dunmore. Dunmore's wife apparently wasn't too impressed by the build, saying she had seen bigger chicken coops. The Earl then built an extra wing onto the castle, which might have been his downfall, as shortly after he became bankrupt. On the steep hill behind the castle is the Scots Monument. It's a 4-chambered cairn and there are remains in 2 of the chambers. The Scots inhabited the castle during the Second World War. Lady Scott died in 1937 at the young age of 57. Her husband died in 1944. He was only 64. They loved the castle and apparently they were well known for their fabulous parties. Lady Scott is said to haunt the castle, but she's a friendly ghost, probably because of all her parties. Peat was originally formed when the last ice age ended and things started to warm up. Peat by definition should be 60% organic matter and should sit at least 50 centimetres deep. There are places in the Outer Hebrides where the peat is sitting 20+ foot deep.
Right, what have we got?
We have our peat or turf,
Turf.
as we call it, pre-cut. You can see it's really quite fibrous. It's got roots that actually smells so natural.
Yeah.
And obviously over the years this has developed over thousands and thousands of years, and it's under bogs like this where they find things like 𝕾𝖈𝖆𝖆𝖕𝖆, who is completely well preserved because of the water. Peat forms when the amount of water going into the soil is more than what can actually escape the soil. Fun fact, if you buy a house in the Outer Hebrides, it will come with its own peat bank, so you can fuel your own fire.
Right, you might wonder why we just showed you some dirt. It's because the Hebrides have got loads and loads of natural peat occurring everywhere. So I thought I'd just show you what it was. If you look at the aerial maps, there's loads of troughs everywhere, and that's all peat troughs.
Still really windy, quite spectacular. Heading up there, Bonnie Prince Charlie's Memorial apparently. Better be worth it.
driving past this kind of monument thing for the last couple of days, not realising what it was. It's actually another Bonnie Prince Charlie memorial, or monument thing.
In September 1920, an 80-foot whale washed onto the beach in Bragar. Here's the story. Authorities had been contacted to remove the whale from the beach, but Bragar's remoteness ensured that nobody turned up. The beach, and indeed the village, would eventually just smell of rotting corpse. Eventually the villagers would take matters into their own hands. They removed all the blubber from the whale for oils and medicines and ointments to light their lamps. All sorts of different uses for the blubber of a whale. A year later, it was just the skeleton of the whale that was left on the beach. And that's when Murdo Morrison, the postmaster, decided he fancied a whale arch at his house.
On the way here we passed the Whalebone thing, which the Whalebone and Harpoon, which is actually in somebody's garden, so we didn't hang about too long. But you've got a story about that one?
Yes, it was, I think, in the 1920s. The whale washed up on the beach around here, and a guy basically found the bone and the harpoon was still attached, and he took it to his shed, where he then discovered that the small explosive device in the harpoon hadn't been set off, and it went off in his shed. Luckily he wasn't in the shed when it went off.
Yeah, that would have been bad.
Well, it wouldn't have been good.
Yeah. Well, the whale apparently washed up. It had obviously died because of its wounds, but it didn't die instantly because the harpoon didn't go off. So
Yeah.
they just left it floating out there until it washed up.
Sad but true.
Yep.
Nobody knows where or by whose hand the whale had its terrible fate. But the whale story is bordering on the realms of folklore. Many people have offered to buy the whalebone. It has been made clear that the whalebone is not for sale. In fact, now it is regularly coated with fiberglass to ensure that it does last for generations to come.